Hey, we're live for Vikings Vintage. Didn't have a show last week because I had no voice, but we are this week. And with all the schedule talk coming out, Tony and I thought, hell, let's talk about the best opening games in Vikings history. And if you notice the thumbnail, that's probably the greatest Week 1 game in Vikings history.
Skol Vikings, let's win this game. Skol Vikings, honor your name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run out the score. You'll hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Skol Vikings, let's go.
Awesome opening.
Let's do it.
So, if you notice the thumbnail, that was 1961. That was a game where nobody thought the Vikings would win, especially the Bears. I think the Bears took them lightly.
Put them very lightly. Very lightly. Very lightly.
Yeah. So the Vikings are actually very good in opening. The Vikings' all-time record as a franchise is 523, 435, and 11. But they also have a winning record on opening day. So I mean, their all-time record is 35, 27, and 1 in Week 1 games. That just goes back to how the Vikings are such a successful franchise and never went to anything. So the 61 Vikings went 3-11, as we know. But the first game of the season was against, as you saw, against the Bears. And I wonder if, because George Halas is the reason why the Vikings were in the NFL and not the AFL. So I wonder if he just wanted to prove a point, or if he wanted to say, hey, welcome to the NFL. Thank you for coming. And the Vikings totally went and dashed all his dreams and hopes of week 1.
And I know, he did want the Vikings in the NFL to take guys off the AFL. He did not want that team to play their first game and beat his team's ass.
No,
he wanted that game not only like a welcome to the NFL gesture, but he was old school. He wanted to put a beat on the new team. The down went in reverse. So he just I know Mike Ditka said that he didn't talk to him on the bus ride to the airport or on the way home. He didn't talk to the team. That's how upset he was after losing to the Vikings. And the legend that started that day also was a legend of Fran Tarkenton. He was a different type of quarterback and gave the Bears fits all day, and they ended up getting embarrassed.
Didn't Fran Tarkenton get like 4 touchdowns, I think?
Either 4 I know he scored 4. I think he ran for 1 and threw 3. Now keep in mind he didn't start. The first ever TD pass was to Bob Schnelker, and if that name sounds familiar, he ended up being the Vikings offensive coordinator in the late 80s. But yeah, I think Fran scored.
Was he the one that Jerry Burns was defending in that video
Yeah,
that we watched Friday?
that's the one. He was defending Bob Schnelker. Schnelker caught the first TD pass. George Shaw started, but he couldn't do anything, and targeting. So, but yeah, that game was I'm sure that was George Halas going in there and thinking, well, let's welcome the new team into the league, and we are the big boys, and we're going to show them how the big boys play. And the Vikings kicked the big boys in the ass. So, but that jump started the franchise. That jump started the rivalry that was the Bears, and 37-13 was the final. And the Vikings were in the history books, I believe, up until Houston won their first game against Dallas in 2002. So,
Sorry, my dog's being an asshole.
so yeah, so that was that. That's the most memorable opening game. If you've been a lifelong fan, that would be the most memorable. There are others, especially in my wheelhouse, that are memorable too. But
Yeah, so George Shaw started the game at quarterback for the Vikings, but was soon replaced by Fran Tarkenton. He threw 4 touchdown passes and ran for another.
oh, he did throw 4. Okay.
And they're 37-13. But that was their that was like their only win for a long time. They ended up losing like 5 or 6 straight, I think.
Yeah, I think they were 3-11 that year.
Yeah, they went 3-11. They didn't win again until week 9.
Yep.
Yeah. As long as there's not food involved, they're fine when they got started together. Sorry. JJ's having trouble adjusting to the new puppy. Yeah, that was definitely, I mean, for the first ever game, I think the only other team, I think the only other expansion team to ever win their first game was the Houston Texans. They beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, in 2002, I mentioned that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm messing with my dog. But yeah, I mean, you think of all the expansion teams and how they're the only one who, you know, for a long time were the only ones who won.
Yeah.
But that was the highlight of their season because they weren't very good that year.
No. And it also started the legacy of defensive end Jim Marshall. The Vikings got him a few days before the start of the game, and he started that game.
Yeah.
So that started that. You had some legends playing in that game, Viking legends. You had Grady Alderman, you had Fran, you had Jim Marshall.
Yeah, so the scoring was a Mercer 12-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Schneckner, 14-yard pass from Tarkenton.
First ever Viking touchdown.
And then Ren Cow, 29.
Oh, Jerry Reichow.
Yeah. 29-yard pass from Tarkenton. Hugh McElhenney, which a lot of people still don't even know played for the Vikings. 2-yard pass from Fran. And then Fran Tarkenton, 2-yard run. And then Dave Middleton, 2-yard pass from Tarkenton.
Who scored the Bears touchdown?
So Rick Canaris.
Cesaris
had a 3-yard run, and that was the second quarter. They didn't score again until the last score of the game, and it was Willie Gallimore.
Willie Gallimore, okay.
Billy Wade touchdown pass.
Okay.
Yeah, Billy Wade threw for 109 yards, which was high for him.
Yeah.
And then Fran Tarkenton threw for 254 touchdowns. Mel Tippett was the leading rusher, 8 rushes, 26 yards.
Mel Triplett, okay.
Yeah, and then Ren Cow was the leading receiver, 3 receptions for 103 yards.
How many receptions?
3 for 103 yards.
Damn.
So not bad.
3 catches. That's it for that era of football. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I guess I saw these comments.
Yeah, there was a.
Yeah. Yeah, this kind of I wouldn't say this is a revenge game this year, but
this year's opener. I don't know. unless you're a Viking fan or a Giant fan, doesn't really generate a lot of interest.
No.
It just doesn't.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I wish some people like those other Vikings content creators who didn't even care about the Vikings history.
Right.
I'm not going to mention any names. I'll throw his initials out there. So,
You know what? Darian, I don't know what game started the curse.
yeah.
Probably the Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl loss. Because we were heavily favored to win that game and we got beat.
And then 62. I don't know if that would be considered. Because I don't think we opened the season that year against Green Bay. It was not
So
great.
we started the season against the defending NFL champions, huh?
Yeah,
No.
34-7. They lost the two first games of 62, 34-7 to the Colts and to the Packers. They didn't win. They didn't win till week 6.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was at City Stadium, which is the same stadium as Lambeau. They didn't name it Lambeau to what, 70 something?
Yeah. Well, was City Stadium Milwaukee?
That's County Stadium.
Was it always known as County Stadium?
The only reason I know about this is because driving home from work, I was listening to the NFL Network, and they were talking about the Packers. And Bill, I think was it Bill Polian was talking about him how he knew Lambeau Field as City Field growing up. So that's the only reason I know that.
Okay. I think they named it Lambeau in like 66, 67, maybe later.
Yeah.
Um,
So I don't. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, the 63 season. This is their last. I guess you could say the last bad year before they started.
started to make progress.
Right. San Fran was the opener that year. They played San Fran in week 1 and week 3, and they beat them twice.
Okay. It's not unusual for the NFL to schedule a team 1 week and then 2 weeks later play them again. They actually do that on a regular basis. I think in 61 we played the Packers back to back.
They
Won.
on the first week of the season, it was 24-20. They beat San Fran, and then San Fran came to Metropolitan Stadium, and it ended up being it was 45. But Kaiser Stadium wasn't that an awful stadium?
Which one? Oh,
Kaiser.
Kezar?
Or Kaiser?
Yeah, Kezar was it was bad. That's why they moved to Candlestick, because Kezar was falling apart even then.
Kind of like the Pilot Stadium in Seattle.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. But the Niners had competitive teams. They just weren't always able to get over that hump. And they had some pretty decent teams too.
Yeah, so I mean, so that was. I don't know if that was memorable or not, but I mean, I guess maybe because it kind of did start the run of them being a good team.
No, JJ, no.
So I mean, that would be that good. It'd be good for that.
Who do we open against the 64?
Girl.
I'm sorry, I was trying to open that game up, but
Nobody ate it all.
yes, I remember there have been some. Not every game has been good either. We'll get into some bad ones as well.
Oh, there's been plenty of opening games that were bad, even recently.
Yeah, we were talking before on the air about a particular game that we'll get to later. But 64 was kind of the year where everything started going. That's also the year they traded Hugh McElhenney.
They trade him, or did they just let him go?
They also traded they got Bill Brown from the Chicago
Yeah, they got Bill.
Bears,
They got Bill Brown at 62.
and
They
they
got Fred,
traded Hugh McElhenney.
yeah, and they got
and then to the Giants for the 53 overall.
Yep, they
And
got
the
Bill
Vikings-
Brown, and they got Bill Brown at 62. McTinglehoff signed in 62.
And then the Vikings traded a 10th round selection to Los Angeles for running back Tommy Wilson.
Which running back?
Tommy Wilson. So Baltimore is who they played in 64. 34-20 at Met Stadium.
Okay.
So that I think this was the last year that they didn't, because they were in the NFL West at this point. Still,
Yeah, they didn't develop. They didn't divvy up the
Okay.
divisions until 67 when they got when New Orleans came in. Then they
Yeah.
added Coastal,
Buddy.
Century, Capital, and Central. That was
Yeah.
67.
so yeah, it's
You guys hi?
so that was
34.
34 to 24, 35,000 in attendance.
Oh, that was Met Stadium.
Yeah,
Yeah, and this Met held 45. So
was it bigger for baseball?
it was built for baseball, that's for sure. They added more seats later. I think there was construction going on then to add more seats. I think it was only 40,000 seat stadium. Then they added 7,000 more seats.
So this was 64.
Yeah.
So this was their third. Norvan Brocklin was the head coach.
Mm-hmm. Storm and Norman.
So this was still before. So 64 champions were the Browns, I believe, right?
Yeah, we're the Browns. The Vikings drafted Carl Eller number 1. They drafted Milt Sunday. So they were building some building blocks there. They had Roy Winston, Mick Tinglehoff, Grady Alderman. You had Bill Brown. Kasulki was there. Ed Shirachman was there. So you had some pieces that they were starting to build some pieces to those championship teams.
And they played, so 65, they played Baltimore again.
In Baltimore or at the Met?
And at Baltimore.
Okay.
35 to 16.
Vikings won?
No, Baltimore won.
Baltimore won?
Yeah. They started off 0-2 that year.
Oh, yeah. 65 was not a good year for them.
They went 7-7. 77 that year.
Yeah, that year was just, I mean, you had Van Brocklin resigning for one day and coming back. And then 65, they drafted Jack Snow, and he never played it down with the team, so he ended up getting traded to LA. But they did get Gary Larson out of that trade, so it worked out.
So far, it seems like a lot of their games are not really a lot happening.
So they were. I mean, when the NFL season started. I mean, when it was opening season, there wasn't the brouhaha, there wasn't a hoopla that there is now.
That didn't happen until the mid '80s.
That didn't happen until really the 1990s.
So
there wasn't the whole. I mean, now it's like a damn spectacle, but back then
the schedule release is a damn spectacle.
Yeah.
So I think 66 was that Brocklin's last year.
That was Van Brocklin's last year. Tarkington's last year till he came back.
4-9-1, and they tied.
They tied the Niners in 66.
Yep.
What was the score?
2020.
Yeah. And they didn't have overtime back then, folks. So if the game ended in a tie, it was a tie. It was on your record as a tie.
It was the late game.
Yep.
It was the late game. Yeah, Tommy Davis. The 49ers scored two. They scored third. They were 13-0. Then Tommy Mason scored, and then Bill Brown scored. So pretty much it was Fred Cox. It was Fred Cox and Tommy Davis show.
Tommy Mason, okay.
Yeah.
And that was Mason's last year with the team too.
So, yeah, Tommy Mason 2-yard rush. Yeah. So it was San Francisco actually lost the game in my opinion because they were up 20-0 at halftime.
Yeah, they probably wrote it in the paper back then as a loss, even though it was a tie. But you had the lead, and you lost the lead. So,
I mean, if I was a coach, I would consider that a loss. Even though the game
who was a Niner coach? Was that Red Hickey?
Let me see. Jack Christensen.
Jack Christensen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keys our stadium.
Yeah, Kezar. That dump.
Yeah. So, like I said, I don't think they. I mean, they've had some good and some bad season openers. Most of these are just regular games.
The 60s openers are just blah.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing nothing like I said to write home about.
Okay. So that's just. There's really not any like revenge games or anything going on because the Vikings weren't considered the franchise.
The Vikings were just another NFL team.
Yeah.
They were a bottom tier. They were a bottom tier NFL team. You know,
had the best looking uniforms though.
Yeah, one of them.
So that's 2 straight years. They opened 67. They opened up against the Niners again,
But Grant's first year,
and they lost that one.
that was at the Met, right?
Let me go back. That was nope. The Scout. Wait. Let's see. Yeah, the Met. So their first 4 games, 3 of them were at the Met, and they lost 4 of them. First one of the year wasn't that year until they beat Tampa, they beat Green Bay. That was the year they had 3 ties.
Oh yeah, yeah. They were 3-8-3.
Yeah. So, like I said, the Vikings have only had 3 wins. They've only went 3 times. I think it's 3 times. I didn't go over this. Where they only had 3 wins in a season, and 2 of them were in the 60s.
Yep.
So, and of course, we know the other one.
Yeah.
Leslie Frazier.
Yeah.
Hey,
He needs to stop.
stop!
He's going to find himself a new home if he doesn't stop.
Mhm.
Please stop. Stop it.
And then
Stop.
Atlanta Falcons. Was that their first year, 68, for the Falcons?
No, that was the Falcons' second year.
Well, they opened up the season against the Falcons, and it was. I guess this is probably you could probably consider this a good opening week. 47-7.
Vikings win.
Yeah.
Was that at home?
Yep.
Okay. What? Okay. Can you tell what night that game was played on? Was that a Sunday?
Let me see. Let me go back. It was. I think it's Pro Football Reference. That has the.
Davey in the chat says it was a Saturday night.
Let me see. The game was. I guess we can look. It was. What date was it? It was it was September 14th, Saturday.
September 15th. That was my dad's birthday.
It was a Saturday, September 14th.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yeah. So 47-7. I mean, that's a pretty good
Yeah.
game. But they weren't the They weren't the only ones who played on Saturday. They were the fourth game of that week.
So there was so they're playing on Saturdays, and there's also college football, which was bigger than the NFL.
Right. It does.
And the Minnesota Gophers are.
Oh, you know what though?
Huh?
This was a year before the merger, so I think were they the only team? Let me look at when was this game? Let me see what day this game.
Well, the merger was agreed upon, but they weren't going to act on it until 70.
So, yep. Okay. So, by looking at the schedule, the Vikings and the Falcons were the only NFL game that day. All 3 other games were AFL.
Oh, they were AFL.
Cincinnati, San Diego, Boston, Buffalo, Kansas City, and Houston were the other 3 games on that Saturday.
There was a lot of football. With that in the colleges. I mean, just think if you had like cable TV back then.
Yeah. Norm Hecker.
I think his name was.
Yeah. So this was the Falcons didn't score. They scored in their third quarter, but Fred Cox, Billy Martin. So Fred Cox field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Martin, Bill Brown, Tom Hall, Fred Cox, Jim Lindsay, and then Bill Brown again.
And that was 68.
This was 68.
Yeah, that was. We drafted Yuri, and Yuri did not play much his rookie year. That was the right tackle was Doug Davis, but yeah, that was probably the start of.
It was also their first playoff appearance, wasn't it? 68.
Yeah, he was the first overall draft pick.
No, I'm saying the Vikings. That was their first playoff, right?
Yeah, they played the Colts in December.
Yeah, they lost to the Colts, 14-24.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, so the next year, we all know what happened the next year.
Now, 69, they open up against the Giants. They had the lead against the Giants. They had a 17-7 lead at halftime, and they eventually lost it, 24-23. But was against Fran. Fran was a quarterback for the Giants. Gary Quazzo was the starter for the Vikings. Joe Kapp didn't start. I don't know why, but the starter was Gary Quazzo. There was a dynamic there too because
the Vikings traded their first overall selection.
Yeah, our top draft year was Ed White.
Yeah,
so he was our top pick. But there was a dynamic going on with Bud and the coaching staff as far as quarterbacks went, because Joe Kapp wasn't always a starter. Gary Quazzo split a lot of time. So, okay, Davey just said Kapp was okay. Thank you, Davey.
So the thing, here's the thing. The interesting thing about 69 was when that game was played at Yankee Stadium too.
It's on YouTube. Bits and pieces of it. It's on YouTube.
Well, the Vikings went 12-2 that year.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about that season is they lost the first game and the last game.
Yep. Yeah, they won 12 straight. They won 12 straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next week, Joe Kapp plays and throws 7 TD passes against the NFL champion Colts.
52-14.
Yeah. So that kind of jump started what was going to be. That was a magical year for the Vikings. They went to the Super Bowl. We know what happened, but that was the start of what was going to be regular playoff appearances.
Actually, the Vikings had the home field in the championship game because it alternated.
Yep.
It alternated years. The Western Conference happened to have it that year.
Yeah, because Cleveland had it the year before. And or not Cleveland, but Baltimore had it the year before, and then the Vikings got it. The Western Conference got it. So Cleveland played in the championship 2 years in a row, and only managed to score what? 7 points.
Yeah, it was 27-7.
Yeah, we beat them 27-7, and I think Baltimore shut them out in 68, 34-0.
47,900 must have been the.
Oh, for the championship?
That must have been the max for Metropolitan Stadium because the Rams game and the Browns game was 47,900.
Yeah, that was a max, and I think that was the Rams game. Yeah,
and then the Super Bowl had 80,000.
Yep. Super Bowl was played at Tulane Stadium. The Rams game was actually close to above freezing. It might have been 27, 28 degrees. The Cleveland game was probably 7 degrees. It was cold. It was cold.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat and do the research, guys. So.
Yeah, I do remember hearing about Cap getting hurt in preseason. And Cap left that game against Baltimore. He came back in. I think he threw a couple more TD passes.
I saw a story on why the NFL doesn't use the white stripe on the ball anymore.
They changed that in 75
the reasons
years
why.
ago. Yeah, they changed it in like 75, 76, where they just went with no stripes. It was kind of a stupid rule. I think it was. I kind of want to say they wanted to
They want to be like a college game. I think that's why they changed.
Right. They wanted to differentiate between the NFL ball and the college ball. So
And they came out with a dude.
Oh hell, there used to be teams that played night games. They would have a white ball.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess you could see it better.
Yeah, but you got to remember the lighting back then was really bad. So anything that stadium lights weren't the best. So anything that it's not like the lighting they have now.
And then 70.
That was literally a revenge game against the Chiefs in more ways than one. That season opener.
27-10.
Yeah, it was a 3:00 game here in the Twin Cities. I don't believe it was televised in Twin Cities. I think home games were blacked out, but that was a revenge game because one, we lost to the Chiefs, but second of all, they wired up Hank Stram, the head coach, and all those derogatory comments he made towards the Vikings. Well, we heard them and we didn't forget them, and the fans let them know it. They let Hank Stram know it.
Still derogatory today.
Yeah, and they let them know it. So, but they came out this game and they played in this game the way they should have played in the Super Bowl. I don't know what happened. They just didn't get it together. And of course, Gary Quazza was a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Cap was still holding out. But yeah, that was a revenge game. Big revenge game.
They just wish they would have performed in the Super Bowl like they did in that game.
Right.
Because that was the one, like we've talked about it before. We understand the last Super Bowl they were in, they were kind of not. They weren't the better team.
Yeah, they were an older team.
But this one is definitely one that they should have got.
Yep.
And then 71, they opened up against
71 was the beginning of 2 years in a row that they would play on Monday Night Football. They opened up the season against the Detroit Lions in 71. They beat them 16-13
Tiger Stadium.
At Tiger Stadium, they won 16-13. Defense had to hold on for that one, but Detroit had plenty of chances to win, but the Viking defense held them. So, but that was probably the start of the Vikings. Just from that first game, you knew the Vikings needed a quarterback. Put it that way. You knew they needed a quarterback.
Well, they made the playoffs. They lost to the Cowgirls.
Right. But that was the year that we just if you think of the defense we had, if we had a competent quarterback that year, we probably go to the Super Bowl. We probably go to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row.
Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, and then 70, the next year, 72.
72, another Monday
Red,
opener
Redskins.
against the Redskins was Fran Tarkenton's return. And it was a block. I think a block punt by the Redskins was a difference maker in that game. They lost that one by 24-21.
Yep, 24-21. When did Monday Night Football start?
70.
70?
Yep.
Yeah. Gosh. Kurt Knight, 30-yard field goal. John Gilliam, 11-yard pass. Parkington, Larry Brown, 3-yard rush. Charlie Haraway, 9-yard rush. Bill Brown.
Who started quarterback for the Redskins? Was that Jurgensen?
No, Kilmer.
It was Kilmer. Okay.
Yeah. But that
Kilmer
game looked like it was ugly.
And Kilmer was not that good of a quarterback. I'm just being honest. He was not.
Fran Tarkenton got sacked 4 times in that game.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't know. Some of these games look ugly. I'm sorry.
Well, they weren't. It was the NFL of the 60s. It was the NFL of the 60s and 70s. So, where defenses was. The Redskins had a strong defense. They had a strong defense.
Not like today, where they're pretty much making it impossible to play defense.
Right. You can't play defense nowadays.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, we're both defensive guys, so.
Yeah, Davey, we did outplay the Skins in that opener, but it was just it was a couple of bounces that went against the Vikings that did them in.
So 71 was the Raiders.
73 was the Raiders.
Sorry, 73. Sorry. That's all right. 73 was the Raiders.
Yep, we won that one.
24-16.
Yep. And we rattled off 9 straight wins.
Speaking of the Raiders, let's give a quick shout out to Double O.
Oh yeah, Jim Otto. Yep. Yeah,
80,
we lost
86.
him. He's he's a year younger than I believe. He's the same age as Jim Marshall.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that tell you? Yeah. R.I.P. Otto. And I think the NFL should go back to letting players wear 00. It's better than 0.
Because it's 00 is 100.
Yeah.
0 is not even a number.
Yeah, 0 is an accessory.
Yeah.
Go let players wear 00.
No, will they? Who knows? They've changed so much that
I hate to the point. Sometimes I don't even like today's version of football at all. I think everything now is they've gone too much entertainment instead of sport. I mean, I want the sport. I don't want the entertainment. If I want the entertainment, I'll watch a damn variety show. I'll watch a movie. That's entertainment. Yeah. I want sports.
So 74, they went 10-4, and they opened up against Green Bay.
Against the Packers, beat them 32-17.
Yep. They actually won their first 5 games that year.
Yeah. First loss was, of all teams, at home to the Lions.
Yep, and the Lions were not very good. But then they also lost to the Patriots.
Yeah, and then the Fran Tarkenton fight game.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, that's the first time they played the Packers in Week 1.
No, they played them in the 60s in Week 1, didn't they?
So I don't remember seeing them Week 1.
Yeah, 62.
So, okay, so it's second time, but still.
Yeah, 62.
But this one they won 32-17.
Yeah, that was all Vikings. The Packers weren't very good. They weren't.
Who was the quarterback for the Packers? Let me see.
It was either Jerry Taggy or I think it was Jerry Taggy.
Yeah, 9 of 20 for 120 yards, 3 interceptions.
Yeah. He literally had nobody. He had nobody to throw to. The big vocal point of that Packer offense was John Brockington and MacArthur Lane.
Yeah, and they didn't do anything.
And they didn't do anything that game. Usually, and Brockington used to have monster games against that Viking defense.
And Tarkington was didn't throw for much yards either. He only threw for 116.
Right. And what did Chuck Foreman do?
22 carries, 67 yards, 19. He had 5 receptions for 32 yards.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it was
Probably, my guess is because of the 4 turnovers, the Vikings didn't have a long field.
right.
With that score, let me see 20-yard field goal, 18-yard pass, a 1-yard run, a 3-yard run, 21-yard field goal.
They were working with a short field. I think their longest
Yeah.
scoring play was a
Amos Martin special teams fumble return.
fumble return for a touchdown.
That was the last one. Yeah, so when you score 32 points, but you only have 165 yards in total offense. I mean,
You're working on a short field.
262 yards of total offense. Yeah.
But also keep in mind this was the NFL of the 70s. They didn't open it up until the rule changes in 78. And this is games like this were one of the reasons they changed the rules. They wanted more scoring, they wanted more passing.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like 3 yards on a cloud of dust, but I don't know about every game. But
Yeah, it's and back then it was all about running the ball, and good defense. Now it's shootout city every Sunday.
I don't know if I like the shootouts, but it sells. So
It's for entertainment, but it's not. It's not sustainable. You can't keep that. You can't. After a while, it gets old.
Yeah. So and then we all know about the next year.
We opened the season against the Niners, won 27-17.
Yep.
Steve Spurrier was a quarterback for the Niners. Fran opened up for the Vikings.
And
But
then
that was the start of. What did
And
they
then,
win? What did they win? 10 in a row?
Let me see. They did not lose until week 11.
Against the Redskins.
Yep. And then they lost to the Lions.
Then they lost to the Lions. Yeah, that was 10 in a row.
So 27-17 was the score of that game. The next week was a statement game against the Browns. They won that one 42.
Yeah, the Browns were just bad. They were bad that year.
So the Vikings had they had 279 total yards again, but
It wasn't. I'll tell you what. It was kind of a sloppy game by the Vikings. The Niners played them tough. The Niners always played them tough.
yeah, 3 turnovers for the for 49ers, 2 for Minnesota.
Ted Brown had one of the not Ted Brown. Terry Brown had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So that was kind of a difference.
Yeah, Norm Snead was the quarterback.
Snead and Spurrier both played, I think.
It says, they both played, but it looked like Snead played more.
Yeah, Snead got knocked out of the game. Yeah, Snead got knocked out of the game.
Yeah, so and of course we know what happened in 75. It was not a slip and fall.
There was no slip and fall.
As
There
Bob
wasn't
likes to
anything
say,
like
the guy slipped. No, he did not slip. He was pushed. Even the man himself admits that he pushed him.
Yep.
That was probably the Vikings' best team.
Yeah, that even the players even said that was their best team to date. It was better than a 69 team. I mean, Chuck Foreman gained 1,000 yards. First time ever a Viking rusher for 1,000 yards. All pro. He had like 10 all pros on that team. You know?
And of course, the Cowgirls got lucky that year.
Yeah. And then the way it went down, I mean, yeah. Oh yeah, the Mavs won tonight.
I think it was more about what the Nuggets didn't do than what the T-Wolves did in Game 7.
Yeah.
I mean, they blew that huge ass lead. I was wondering where everybody was at, and I forgot the T-Wolves were playing tonight.
Yeah, T-Wolves played tonight.
I like the fact that they're wearing the old Wolves uniforms in playoffs.
I like that. Yeah, I can live with that.
Well, the new ones are dumb.
I can live with that.
All right. So 76, I don't think.
76 was a whitewash. 76 was just embarrassing. They beat the Saints 40-9.
Yeah, but then they tied the next week.
Yeah, and then they got the tie. But yeah,
we got to keep in mind those Saints were awful for how many years?
They were garbage then. That's why they hired Hank Stram. Hank Stram was their head coach.
And I think that was the first year of the Superdome.
Nope, second year, because the Vikings played the Saints in 75 at the Superdome.
Okay. It's hard to believe that stadium's still around.
It opened in 75. It was supposed to host the Super Bowl 9, and it I don't think it was done yet. So that's why they had it at Tulane Stadium. That game was supposed to be at the Superdome.
The Vikings did not lose a home game.
Mm-mm.
They tied, but they did not lose.
Yeah, they didn't lose a home game.
And they had overtime at this time, didn't they?
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, so that 40-0 win, that was. So they've had some good spots where they've had some pretty good season openers. I mean, I know New Orleans is not good, but
and keep in mind now, people, preseason was 6 games up until 78, and the starters played in all of those games, sometimes the whole game. So by the time the regular season rolled around, they were well in game shape. So
unlike now where they don't play at all.
Yeah, and like now, because week 1 games can look like preseason games.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with like back then, they actually had real jobs during the off season.
Well, they didn't work out year round. They worked out on their own. They didn't have OTAs every month. Now it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job being a football player.
Yeah,
where
even though they don't even get paid during the off season.
Right. But they make enough money to where, and if they're frugal with their money, they can make it. you know, they can make it.
But most of them, like, they would, whatever they went to school for, usually is what they did in the off season.
Yeah.
So if they had like a business degree, they would do business or whatever, you know, until the season came around.
Exactly.
Nowadays basket weaving. So, oh, thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
No, they didn't have all that. And
no, I mean, what didn't they say? Like beers, wings, and fries, or something like that is what they.
Well, their diet was basically going to the bar and loading up on wings and fries and beer.
Yeah.
They needed training camp because they would gain weight in the off season, so they needed to lose a lot of weight and get into playing shape. That was with a lot of them. You know, and sometimes the players would get together and have their own workouts, but none of this
This
OTA.
was a workout.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then they would go shoot some guns in the backyard.
Yep. Well, Jim Marshall's place was always a gathering place for the players. His was like the hangout.
Well, he was local.
Yeah.
You know, and he never left. I know a lot of players left. Not like what they do nowadays because it was just more expensive, but they might go a couple states over, but nothing like what they do now, where they live in Florida in the off season.
Well, now and they're moving to spots too where you don't have to pay no state income tax.
Yeah,
that's got a lot to do with it too.
Excuse me, wow.
So we opened up in '77 with the Cowgirls.
Lost in overtime.
Lost it in overtime. We had a chance to win it, but Fred Cox missed a field goal in overtime, or regulation. It might have been regulation or overtime. He missed a field goal, and you can blame Bud Grant for that one because Fred Cox wanted to be cut before the season started in '77, and Bud wouldn't cut him. Bud hung on to him, and Fred knew he had lost it, but Bud Grant held on to him. So yeah, the Cowgirls won, and we played them again in the NFC Championship that year, and they went on to win the Super Bowl.
I went back to '75 real quick to see if they played a preseason game on the day I was born. They played the Patriots the day after.
Oh, that was yeah. And the big controversy for that game was they didn't Bud wasn't going to let Fran play because Fran was too emotional because he had got into a fight the year before with Ron Bolton for the Patriots. So he didn't play Fran that game, and Vikings lost 37-10.
It was 36-10.
36-10. Yeah, but he didn't let Fran. Fran suited up. Fran was on the sideline, sitting on his helmet, but he didn't play. He did not play.
Sorry to go back, guys. I just wanted to check to see if they played on my birthday, the day I was born.
So we did 77. 78. Now, this is interesting. We opened up the season against the Saints.
Lost.
We lost, but here's the interesting thing about that. All of the games on TV were joined in progress. Why? Because that morning they had the christening and swearing in ceremony for the new Pope, for Pope John Paul I. So they carried that live, and it started at 8:00 on the East Coast.
That wouldn't happen today.
No, and he it lasted up until halftime of all the football games. Because when
I would have been pissed.
Oh, we were sitting there. We're just like, when is this going to be over? When are they going to put the football game on? Which when you think about it, I think 45 days later that Pope passed away. So, it was kind of but we wanted to see the football game, and the Vikings were already losing when the game came on. We had it on the radio.
They also played 3 straight road games that year.
Yeah. And they lost that one 31-24. You kind of knew the wheels were coming off the team by that time. It wasn't the same team. It didn't even feel like the same team from all those years ago. And that was Fran's return game after he came back from the injury the year before.
Yeah, 7. These are kind of, I don't know, the 78, 79.
79 was Tommy Kramer's debut as a starting quarterback, and he beat the Niners. Came from behind. I think the final was 28-22.
28-22. They didn't win a preseason game that year.
No, they lost all their preseason games. They only scored 10 points in preseason.
Yep. And then they beat San Fran, and then they lost their next two.
Yep. Yeah,
Well,
so they
28
were
28-22, and you can see that this is the attendance at Metropolitan Stadium starts to go down too. So, but yeah, that was not. I mean, they went 7-9, but that was the first year the Bucks won the division.
Bucks won the division. Bucks won the division.
That was the Leroy Selman year.
Yep. That was Jim Marshall's last year. Actually, it was Jim Marshall, Wally Hilgenberg, and Paul Krause's last year as Vikings.
But they did block 4 kicks in one game in that year, though.
Yep, the Buccaneers.
So,
Those are Buccaneers. So,
and then, Ricky Young also caught 15 passes that year.
well, that was in the Patriots game, right? He caught 15.
Yep, caught 15. This is still a record today.
Yep. Wait, you mean Keenan Allen didn't break that record?
I think for the Vikings, I guess.
Oh,
But Ricky Young led the team in the rushing yards and touchdowns.
yeah, he was a leading
He had
rusher.
3 rushing touchdowns that he led the team.
Yeah. Ted Brown was a rookie. Chuck Foreman got hurt. We couldn't run the ball. You lost Ed White. You traded the year before,
They were 23rd in rushing offense.
and then Dennis Swilley took over as center for McTingleoff, who retired. Yeah, they couldn't run the ball.
But it's amazing. You think about even with the bad teams that the Vikings have had, how week 1 they have an all-time winning record.
What's that?
I said even with the bad teams, they have they still seem to win. They still win on opening week.
You know, as bad as they were still competitive.
Yeah.
They were still competitive, and that
Well,
also
that's Vikings history too, though.
yeah, that says a lot though about the NFC Central. It was a competitive division. I mean,
Yeah.
9-7 or 8-8 would win the division. What does that tell you?
Yeah, in 1980, they opened up against the Falcons again.
Yeah, Rick Denmeyer kicked a game-winning field goal,
It was 24-23.
24-23. Both teams went to the playoffs. Both teams won their divisions. It was a new look team because all the Purple People Eaters were gone. All of
Right.
them.
They lost to the team that went to the Super Bowl that year in the playoffs. They lost to the
Yeah, they lost to the Eagles twice. But yeah, that was the year, 2 years before they were done with Met Stadium.
Yeah, 82 was the first year of the Metrodome.
Yeah. In 81, they opened up against Tampa Bay. Now, in that game, it was a Saturday night game. Steve Dills started because Tommy Kramer was hurt. Steve Dills threw 62 passes in that game. The Vikings were on the verge of, making one of their comebacks when Steve Dills throws a pass out in the flat. Neil Colsey intercepts it and goes 82 yards for the game-winning touchdown.
It was only 21-13.
Yeah, it was 14-13 for the longest time.
It was the first game of the week.
Yeah, it was the first game of the season for the NFL. They played it on a Saturday, and I don't know why. But it was a Saturday night. And, yeah.
He was 37 of 62 for 361 yards.
Yep.
And his long was only 18 yards.
Yeah, and he threw a TD
No,
pass.
long was 22, sorry. But yeah.
His only TD pass was to Joe Sensor. So then at the next week, they opened up at Met Stadium against the Raiders and got just hammered 36-10.
Yeah, so
And they were 7-9 once again. Last year at Met Stadium.
7-9 seems to be a theme, I'm just saying. 81 degrees.
Yeah, in Florida. Yeah.
So yeah, it was Kevin House 55-yard pass from Doug Williams, and then two Denmeyer field goals, and then Doug Williams a 10-yard pass, and then Joe Sincer a 4-yard pass,
Yep.
and then the 82-yard interception.
Yeah. And it's weird because back-to-back seasons we opened up against Tampa Bay. The next year in '82, we opened at home against them. The first game at the Metrodome, and we beat them 17-10.
You're giving the Metrodome too much credit by calling it the Metrodome. I think it was a dump from the time it was built.
It was built on the cheap. It was built.
Yeah.
It was built on the cheap. They threw it up. It was sterile when they built it. It was just.
So it was 17-10.
Mm-hmm.
And the September 26th game was against the Cowboys was postponed.
Yeah, the player strike. That was the year of the player strike. Yep. So that was the year of the player strike. There's only 9 games, and then.
Oh, thank you. No stop. Wow.
Oh, thanks. No stop. 83. They opened up against Cleveland. In Cleveland.
Sorry, Mama. Miss you. Good night, Mama. Love you.
Night, Mom. So, and they beat Cleveland 27-21. That was one on a, I want to say a John Turner interception at the end.
I'm looking at the comments right now.
So, but yeah, that was actually a good game for what I remember. It was a pretty good game. 84 was a joke. 84 was, of course, Les Steckel. And they opened up against the Chargers.
That was probably we have some good openers. We've had some good ones, and we've had some bad ones.
And that was one of the worst.
So the Vikings have gone. They've only 3-11. They've only had 3 wins 4 times. So there's 2 years in the 60s, 84, and then Leslie Frazier year.
Yep.
So it was a bloodbath.
41-13, wasn't it?
42-13.
42-13.
And then they lost to the Eagles the next week, and they won 2 in a row. I don't know how the hell they won 2 in a row. But it was against the Falcons and Lions. I don't think they were very good either.
No, they were near bottom.
Right, and then they beat the Bucs.
Yeah, they were near bottom, and then so that was 84, and then 85 was a return of Bud, and they beat the Niners.
Seems to be a theme. Hey, seems to be a theme with the 49ers. Maybe they don't want to play us on opening weekend anymore. Maybe it's why the NFL didn't play us week 2.
Yeah, as many times as we've opened the season against them, we beat them. Even in 85, we beat them 28-21. You know.
Yeah, so it was 28-21 in 85.
Yep.
And then they beat the Bucs was week 2. But it was
once again though, they were 7-9. They were respectable.
well, after the season they had the year before 7-9, the winning season.
Yeah, and that was the only reason. That was the only reason Bud came back, and then he retired.
And then we got Bernsey.
Yeah. And Bernsey loses his first game. He lost to the Lions. He lost 13-10 to the Detroit Lions in 86.
It was Darryl Rogers.
They finished 9-7 that year, and one of the reasons if they had beat the Lions, they would have made the playoffs.
Well, the Lions only had 5 wins that year.
Yeah, Wayne Fontes took over middle of the year. Wayne Fontes took over as head coach. But they They said that if the Vikings had won that Detroit game, they would have made the playoffs.
Because they finished 9-7.
Yep.
The Bears went 14-2 that year.
Yeah. And then
86, that was the Niners, right?
86 was the Lions.
No. The win it all was the Giants, right?
Giants won it all in 86.
Yeah. The Phil McConkey touchdown.
Yep. That was Giants and Broncos. And then 87, we opened up the season with the Lions again, and we beat them.
We always beat the Lions.
Yeah.
Even
And I
last
think
year,
that
the Vikings
was-
should beat the Lions twice.
I think that was, 34-19, that opener? 87?
Yeah, 87 was so they didn't lose at all in the preseason.
Yeah, they did.
Well, look at it right now. It doesn't show them losing
They lost a couple of games in 87.
in preseason.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on a second. Never mind. Why did it change? Okay. My fault, guys. It did not. Okay, it switched season to 9. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, they lost twice.
Yeah, I thought they were 2-2.
Yeah, it's 34-18, 34-19.
That's what I thought. Okay. And of course, we're in the middle of the focal point in the Twin Cities was the Twins, because they were on their way to their first World Series win. So they were
Right.
they had all the attention. Plus, the NFL was going to go on strike, and everybody knew it.
September 27th game against Kansas City was canceled.
Yep, they were going to go on strike. Hence the replacement players.
And then the Vikings lost every single game that the replacement players played.
Yep. And still were able to make it to the championship game
Darren Nelson.
against the Redskins. So, all in all, it was if you take out the replacement players, it was a good year.
That probably, I think if there was no strike, they probably win that year.
Yeah, I mean, barring injuries.
They had Rich Gannon, Wade Wilson, and Tommy Kramer as their quarterbacks.
Gannon never saw the field.
Yeah.
Gannon was a rookie.
Carter, Anthony, Jim Gustafson, Hassan Jones, Leo Lewis, and Greg Richardson were the receivers.
Yep.
Mike Malarkey, Steve Jordan hitting with the tight ends. But, yeah, I think the 87 was ruined by the strike, and the Vikings not preparing for the strike.
No, and that's on management.
Yeah.
That was on management.
But, yeah, so 34-19 was against the Lions. It's not really anything to write home about. I mean, it's the Lions, you know.
And they were losing at halftime, 19-7. DJ Dozier scored 3 touchdowns that game, his rookie year. His rookie game, he scored 3 touchdowns.
Right. And this time, this is the area where the Bears were still pretty good.
Yeah. Yep. And then 88. Now, 88, the Vikings had a lot of holdouts in 88. Darren Nelson held out. Kirk Loudermilk held out. Zimmerman held out. Doug Martin held out. Many of them didn't sign until near opening day.
They lost to the Bills.
We lost to the Bills 13-10. Wade Wilson was sacked 6 times. He was sacked 6 times. Thurman Thomas's first game as a Bill, and he was impressive. He was really impressive. But yeah, the season started out bad, but they righted the ship the next week. They beat New England 36-6. And it had its moments, but they went 11-5.
They beat the Rams in the playoffs.
Beat the Rams in the playoffs, and then the 49ers handed it to them.
49ers, remember, they asked kick and they took the year before.
Yep. Yes, they did. And then they closed out the 80s, opening the season against Jerry Glanville's run and shoot Oilers, and we beat them 38-7.
I miss those older uniforms.
I think we were winning. Weren't we winning like 31-7 at halftime?
Let me see. So, well, the final score was 38-7.
Right.
Was the final. So the scoring, Oilers scored first.
Yeah, they scored first. Yeah.
Alonzo Highsmith, 1 yard run. Then Anthony Carter, Steve Jordan, Finney, Teddy Garcia, Rick Finney, and then Alfred. So it was 24-7 at halftime.
Okay, we scored 2 more times in the second half.
Warren
Warren Moon got sacked 8 times.
Once in the third, once in the fourth.
Yeah, Warren Moon got sacked 8 times, 3 of them by Keith Millard.
7 times, 44 yards.
7 times?
Yeah.
I think Keith Millard had 3 of them.
Unfortunately, they don't show defensive stats on this page. Wait, let me see. Oh, wait, here we go. I guess at the very, it's weird how it's set up. Let me see. So he had 3 sacks. Millard had 3 sacks. Doman had 2.
Okay.
And then Al Noga and Henry Thomas each had 1.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, it was that game. They were just beating the hell out of the Oiler offensive line. I remember that. That was just
What that reminds me of was that game where I told you I was watching.
Oh yeah, against the Eagles
in '88. Keith Millard was just abusing that guard for the Eagles that whole game.
I think he was doing like that. He did the same thing this game with the Oilers. The Oilers came in running their mouths too. Jerry Glanville just talking trash, and we embarrassed them.
Luckily for him, he didn't have that. Elvis didn't show up.
Yeah, no shit.
So
we ended. That was the end of the '80s, and then we began the '90s. Lost to the Chiefs.
Yay, 1990.
24-21.
Then they killed the Saints the next week.
Yeah, and then they beat the Saints the next week.
And then they didn't win again until week 9.
Yep. Injuries. The biggest one, Wade Wilson had an injury, but the biggest one was losing Keith Millard. That hurt a lot. And then,
God, what a crappy division 1990 was.
It was bad.
Bears went 11-5. Everybody else was 6-10.
Yeah, it was bad for the rest of the division. And keep in mind, there were 4 other teams in our division, including Tampa Bay. And I think the Vikings ended up 5th.
Yeah. They all finished division record. The Bears were the main one. The Buccaneers won 6 games that year, but 5 of them were in the division.
Yeah, the Vikings end up with a 5th place schedule in 91. So, and they open up the season in 91 with a loss to the Bears. Not by much either. I think it was 10-6.
1991. Yeah, 1991 first game was against the Bears, 10-6.
Yep, 10-6. The last opening game for Jerry Burns. He retired at the end of the year. So basically, Burns retiring was the end of an era. Literally an end of an era for Viking football.
And the 91 season was the first time the Lions won the division in 30.
Yep. First time they won the division. Wow.
Yeah, so they won the division in 61, 91. So that was 30 years after the Vikings became a team.
Mm-hmm.
And then they won the division again in 93, and then they didn't win again until last year.
Yep.
And they're talking like they're a damn championship team.
Yeah, reality is going to hit them in the mouth this year.
I think they're going into the season way too cocky.
I think they overpaid for Goff.
A team like that, though, they don't know how to win. They don't know how because they've never experienced it.
Yeah, I think they overpaid for Goff. I think Goff's going to be their downfall. He's going to be their downfall.
Yeah.
So 92 rolls around. Denny Green is the new head coach. We open the season in Green Bay at Lambeau Field, and we win 23-20 in overtime. I think Terry Allen that game gained 140 yards as a 145 yards rushing.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm not really paying attention to the chat tonight. I really apologize because I'm trying to do all this.
So that was 92, which
They
Danny
beat
got
the Packers in '92.
yeah, Danny got his back to respectability.
Favre's first year, but he was not playing yet.
No, he's on the bench. We started. It was Mikowski. We played Mikowski.
Yeah,
We sacked him 6 or 7 times.
it was overtime game.
Yeah, it was an overtime game. And then so we went to the playoffs.
When did bye week start?
I want to say that started in 89 or 90. Might have been 90.
I think that was probably the strike in '87 when they probably wanted the bye week.
Well, they added them in once they got when they did the new collective bargaining agreement. They added in the bye weeks because I think the players were saying they're playing too many games back to back. Need at least a week rest.
Yeah. So the ejections, the Roger Craig and Jack Del Rio. Now, the one thing about Roger Craig that people don't know is I think he is only one of either 3 or 4 players who never missed the playoffs his whole career.
Yeah. They
The
never
Vikings
did.
weren't supposed to make the playoffs in '92.
They weren't supposed to. The team was supposed to. The Bears actually were leading the division up until that game at the Metrodome.
Yeah,
And-
the Vikings weren't supposed to win the division in '92.
Yeah,
I remember,
and
I remember watching something about it, or I remember watching a story on it somewhere. I can't remember where it was about how it was surprising that they won in '92.
everybody was. Well, the Bears took a drastic nosedive, and the Lions took a nosedive too.
Yeah,
So, because both
And
the
the only-
Lions and Bears went to the playoffs the year before.
and the only reason the Packers were any good was because Favre replaced Mikowski.
Favre, yeah, that was the only reason. But nobody expected the Vikings. The Vikings were in rebuild,
Yeah,
and Danny comes up here and wins 11 games. So
and then they get their butt kicked in the playoffs.
it also helped that they had Tony Dungy as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
That helped a lot too. And then 93, they open a season against the LA Raiders in the Coliseum and lose 24-7. I do remember that.
yeah.
Jim McMahon was a starting quarterback for the Vikings, and Jeff Hostetler was a starting quarterback for the Raiders. But yeah, the Vikings lost 24-7. They did make the playoffs.
That was the year they drafted Toretta.
Yeah. Yeah, who never played it down with us. I don't think he played it down in the NFL. Gino Toretta.
Hey, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he did anything.
Yeah. I don't think he played it down.
I mean, he was a 7th round draft pick, so it wasn't like he was a first rounder. But but
In 93 was the first year that the draft went to 7 rounds. Yep.
it was 8 before that.
It was 12.
So,
It was
but
12.
that draft though, was Robert Smith was the first pick, then Quadri Ishmael. The third guy, John Garrett, didn't do anything. Gilbert Brown, yes, the Gilbert Brown who played for the Packers.
Gilbert Brown, and that's the same Gilbert Brown. He held out with the Vikings. The Vikings cut him, the final cuts. They were going to try to slip him through waivers and sign him to the practice squad, and the Packers signed him.
And then Ashley Shepard,
Yeah.
then Everett Lindsey. So it was a pretty good draft.
Everett was starting.
But they also traded Keith Millard.
They traded Millard the year before.
And in exchange for the 57th overall pick is what they got for him.
They traded Millard in 92.
Right, but I'm saying what they got just finished. They got John Garrick was the guy they got
Yeah.
for the Keith Millard trade.
And they had Jarek all over the place. They had him at guard. They had him at fullback. They had him at tight end. They didn't know what to do with him.
But Eric Gulliford, we don't talk about him. We forgot to mention him for undrafted free agents that had a contribution to the Vikings.
He won one game for the team. That's it.
But undrafted free agent.
He won one game for the team. That's it. And that's because the Packers didn't know how to play pass defense.
Hey, he contributed as an undrafted free agent. I mean, no, he's no Ivan Pace, but still.
Next.
So, yeah.
So what? We're at 94.
Yep.
And that was, we opened up against the Packers, Warren Moon, and we lost 16-10.
Yep.
We won the division that year, but we lost that game 16-10. There's a theme here. We're up to 95, which, by the way, they lost that season opener to the Bears, I believe. What was that score?
95. Yeah, 95 was 31-14.
Okay, 31-14. Have you noticed they've only won what? One opening day in the 90s so far?
Coach Green is a head coach.
Danny Green's debut. And
Seems
then
that
so
way.
they didn't make the playoffs that year. They were 8-8. That was 96. 97. Wait. 96.
That was 95.
That was 95. 96, they opened up against Detroit. And they won that one 17-13.
Let me see. It was 17-13.
Okay. Brad Johnson replaced Warren Moon, who got hurt, and threw a game-winning TD pass to Chris Carter. That was 96.
That was the year the Packers went 13-3.
That was the year the Packers won the Super Bowl. Bastards.
We got smoked in the playoffs.
Yeah, by the Cowboys. What was it? 45-15?
40-15.
40-15. And then
But the Cowboys were good that year, though. So thanks to us, by the way.
yeah. And then
Because they were still good because all the players they got in that Herschel Walker trade.
yeah, most of them were gone by the next year.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I'm surprised that the Vikings were still competitive after that trade. To be honest with you, Dennis Green did a hell of a job with all the players and all the draft picks they lost.
That's Denny Green. He didn't have a lot to work with, but
Yeah.
he got the best out. He had good assistants too.
Yeah.
97.
And he didn't miss that much on his draft picks,
No.
No. But when he did, he missed pretty big. But yeah, 97.
Buffalo, 34-13.
Yeah,
Okay, that was
on the road too.
That was on the road. That was in Buffalo. Robert Smith had a big day. The only reason I remember that is because that was at halftime they did the report on when Princess Diana was killed.
Every team in the division, except for the Bears, made the playoffs that year.
Yeah. Yep.
That was the year they beat the Giants by the point, 23-22.
Yeah. Danny won his first playoff game. So 98. I was at the 98 game. They opened up against Tampa Bay, the beginning of the Randy Moss era.
Yeah,
I was there.
That touchdown pass he caught where he bobbled the ball and scored. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yep, I was there. That was what 31-7.
It was. Let me get there real quick. Yet you're saying it faster than the computer's able to load it. Let's see. That was the year that they didn't lose. They did not lose a preseason.
Yep.
So if you include the preseason, which was 4 games, they pretty much won 13 in a row before they lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was 31-7, and then St. Louis 38-31, 29-6, Detroit 31. They had some close games that year, but
Very few.
very few. But yeah, so it's 31-17 the opener that year against the Bucks.
So that's 98. We know how that ended. 99 was Atlanta.
There's a theme going on here.
99 was Atlanta. We beat them 17-14. That year, 99 was just one of those weird years. It was kind of off.
Yeah, the Bucks were good that year.
Yeah, and we did make the playoffs. But we were what, 9 and no? What were we?
No, they were 9-7.
9-7.
Oh no, sorry, 10-6.
10-6. Okay, so they're
But-
10-6.
So they Cleveland Browns had it. That was the expansion draft for the Browns. No, they lost Orlando Bobo and Dwayne Butler,
Derek Alexander went over there too, and he didn't play it down for him.
and that was the Dante Culpepper, Jim Clydesdale draft.
Yep. So then 2000 rolls around. That's beginning of the Dante era, and we open up against Chicago.
Yep.
And I think we win that one 30-27.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. 17-14.
Okay, with the Falcons, yeah.
Yeah, in 99. Then 2000 is so 2000 was my god, they didn't win preseason. So saying week 1 was against the Saints.
In 2000, it was the Bears.
What's going on? 2000 Minnesota Vikings season. Yeah.
They opened up the season against the Bears.
You know what I think they did? This is why
I know they did.
Wikipedia is good, but there are mistakes in Wikipedia. It looks like they switched the week 1 preseason and the week 1 because we beat the Bears, so we lost to the Saints in the preseason. It looks like they switched the Saints and the Bears. It happens. But yeah, so 30-27 was week 1.
Yeah, just ignore Wikipedia sometimes.
Yeah. No, I trust you, but 30-27. But I double checked it with Pro Football Reference. So
Right.
I just like the way the Wikipedia is formatted. That's why I like looking at it.
It's formatted better, but it's when you've got people that can put their input in there, it's usually off.
Yeah.
And then 2001, of course, you're coming out of camp with the Corey Stringer death, so you got that cloud over your head. They won all their preseason games, but the first play of the year is a kick return by Steve Smith.
And that was the only game Carolina won that year.
The only game Carolina won that year with Chris Weinke as a quarterback. Chris Weinke from St. Paul, Minnesota. So his only win of the year is in his home state, his hometown almost, against his home team. And he beats them. So that year was just
that was a throwaway year.
Yeah, and that was the last year of Denny. You were going to get Mike Tice coming into 02.
Come on, we gotta, the Randy ratio. The Randy ratio.
The Randy ratio, yeah. And that was they opened up the season against the Bears, right?
Hold on. My
In 02.
we're on 05.
We're on 02.
Let's see. Sorry. Yeah, a lot going on in my house right now. Two dogs and my wife and all that. Sorry. So 02, was the Bears. They didn't. They oh man, they had an early bye that week. They had week 5 was their bye. They didn't win after the bye.
Yeah, I think he went into their bye week 04, 0-4.
Yeah, they lost to the Bears 27-23, and
Yep.
they had a shootout with the Bills the next week.
Lost that, and I think that was in overtime.
Yeah, 45-39.
Yeah, that was in overtime. And then that was a throw that year where they were 6-10, so that was
I think it was a full recovery.
Yeah. And it was, Mike Tice. So the next year, 03, I actually had hope for them. They rattled off 6 straight wins. And they started off with the win at Lambeau Field against the Packers.
They went 9-7. But
They won that. What was the score of that opener in 03?
in 03, it was 30-25.
30-25. I think what's his name got picked off like 3 or 4 times. Brett Favre.
Brett Favre got picked off. What?
3 or 4 times. Yep. But yeah, it was they went 6-0, then they lost 6 or something like that.
4 picks.
4 picks, okay. And then it came down to the last play of the game in the season, and they lost to the Cardinals. They were 9-7 that year?
Yeah, 9-7.
9-7, okay.
Yeah.
And then 04, they opened up against the Cowboys. They beat them 35-17. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then
05 was
05 was Tampa Bay. And they lost. What was the final there?
24-13.
24-13. That's right. They lost that one, which end of the season, the Wilfs had bought the team. And at the end of the season, Mike Tice was fired. And he was, 9-7?
His last year. Yeah.
They missed the playoffs. And then in comes, Brad Childress.
Hey, Brad Childress, though, 06, so beat the Redskins.
He beat the Redskins, 14-9?
19-6.
19-6?
19-16, sorry.
19-16? So he wins his first game, and then they finished 6-10.
And then they play the Falcons the next year. And that was 24-3, but that was the Peterson game.
That was the Peterson game. I think what's his name was coaching the Falcons, Patino.
Bobby Petrino. Yeah.
Bobby Petrino. And they had Joey Harrington as their starting quarterback. So that was what, 07.
Yep.
08 rolls around. We open up against
Packers.
Green Bay on Monday night.
They lose 24-19.
Tavares throws an interception at the end of the game, which cost us. What was the final score?
24-19.
24-19, yep. And then 09, the Brett Favre year, we open up against the Browns, and we beat them, 34-19?
34-20.
34-20.
Was that the Adrian Peterson get off me game?
Yep.
He threw like 3 guys off of him?
Yeah. And then the last guy, he just basically pushes out of the way. He just kind of I hate to say it, bitch slaps him and gets him out of the way.
The last guy kind of made a business decision.
Yeah. Yep. And that was 09, so we go to the championship. We know what happens there. Damn you,
Yeah.
Peyton.
Cheating back.
2010, we open up against the Saints.
And this was not a game that we were able to actually get revenge on. They beat us.
Right. We lost. What did we lose this one by?
14-9.
14-9. Okay. And that was 2010. 2011, we opened up against the Chargers.
We lost.
We
Our
lost,
touchdown.
but the season opened with Percy Harvin returning the opening kickoff for a touchdown. First play of the year.
Yeah.
First play of the year. So that was 2011, and that's the last. That is Leslie Frazier's first full year.
And then
2012,
Jacksonville.
we opened up against Jacksonville. We beat them in overtime, right?
26-23.
26-23. That was overtime. We make the playoffs with Christian Ponder, believe it or not. That was AP's record year.
If Christian Ponder doesn't get hurt that game,
We might beat them.
yeah. And
Um,
Joe Webb had to start.
Yep. 2013 is Detroit.
Lost.
First Viking play of the year. Adrian Peterson, long run for a touchdown, but it just
Yeah.
Detroit won that one. What was the final there?
34-24.
34-24. So that was effectively the end of the Leslie Frazier era. And 2014 is the beginning of the Mike Zimmer era. And we open against the
St. Louis
St.
Rams.
Louis Rams. And I think Sam Bradford was our quarterback.
34-6. The Vikings win.
34-6 Vikings. Bunch of long runs. Cordell Patterson had a long run. I think Harrison Smith had an interception return for a touchdown. So we ended up what were we? 7-9 that year?
2014. NFL has right now NFL throwback Randy Moss mini movie. So, so 2014. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 12.
In 2014?
Let me see. What all the stuff that I was looking at before is freaking out. Okay.
Did you check Pro Football Reference?
Yeah, I went to Pro Football Reference. It wouldn't load, so I went someplace else. I'm back on Pro Football Reference. 2014, 7-9.
7-9. Okay. Okay, so 7-9 missed the playoffs. 2015,
That's
we
20.
opened the season against the Niners.
Yep.
And those
So the Vikings opened the road
on the road. Yep.
on a road from 2013 to 2016. They opened on the road every year.
Yep. So they're on the road. They lose to the Niners. And I remember that because the Niners wore those all black uniforms and it was a Monday night doubleheader.
Yep.
So here was, well, for our time, it was like 9:30 at night. Although, remember, Harrison Smith did put a lick on Colin Kaepernick on
Yeah.
the sideline. I remember that. But they couldn't stop. Who was a running back? It wasn't Gore, was it? Who was a running back?
For 2016.
Yeah.
Let me go back real quick.
It was somebody. It was. I see the
I think was it
Carlos Hyde. It was Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, 'cause I think Frank Gore was Frank Gore with Buffalo by then?
Might have been. Yeah, it was Carlos Hyde. Ran circles on the Vikings.
With that Mike Zimmer defense.
With that, yeah. So we lost that one. What was the final score for that one? Catch.
Okay, get off this page. Hold on a second. That page sucks. That the score of that game was 20-3.
Okay, 20-3. Okay. And of course, we make the playoffs that year. I think we win the division. And what's his name misses a field goal?
Blair Walsh.
Blair Walsh. I don't say his name. I do not say his name. So that was 2015. 2016
was the Matt Castle game, or was it Sean Hill?
Sean Hill in
Against
Tennessee.
Titans. Yeah.
We won 26-16.
25-16.
25-16. Kendricks had a touchdown. Danielle Hunter, I think, had a touchdown.
Yeah, that was so yeah, let's see. So Eric Kendricks had a 70-yard interception return.
Yep.
Danielle Hunter had a 24-yard defensive fumble return.
Okay. And that was the year that they had quarterback issues, but they had offensive line issues. Everybody was getting hurt. So they ended up 8-8 that year?
Let me go back. They ended up in 8-8.
Yeah. You kind of ask what would have happened if Teddy had stayed healthy. So then we go to 2017. Sam Bradford opens up the season. It's a home opener Monday night against the Saints.
Yep.
And Sean Payton with Adrian Peterson. And I think the Vikings won
when
that.
Adrian Peterson on the sideline said we need to run it up their ass.
Yeah. And then Vikings won that one, 29-19?
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't think the game was even as close as that score.
No, it was actually a blowout. Stephon Diggs was going off that game. I remember that. He was going off that game. And, of course, we 13-3, win the division, second seed, Minneapolis Miracle, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yeah.
We
know what happened then.
Right. 2018.
Case Keenum had a year. People thought he was a starting quarterback.
Yeah. But it wasn't good enough. They had to go get a quarterback in the offseason. Here comes Kirk.
And they opened up the season against San Fran again.
And he opened up against San Fran and beat them again.
Yeah. This time it was at home, though.
This time it was at home. I don't remember the final, though. Well, 27-16, wasn't it?
24.
24-16?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that close.
No.
I remember that much. And that was, we were 10-6 that year? Or 8-7 and wait a minute.
No, 2018. Yeah, it was. I think they were 8-7-1.
8-7-1 because the next week we tied the Packers.
Yeah.
Because Daniel Carlson couldn't hit a field goal and then he gets cut.
That 2020 game, right? I think that was the score. 2020.
20-20. Yeah. Yeah, and then one of the reporters asked Zimmer, why did you cut the kick? Why did you cut Daniel Carlson? And Zimmer was like, did you see the game?
Yeah. Just like the Kellen Mond. I've seen him play.
Yeah.
But he was wrong about Carlson, though.
Right. So that's 2018.
2018, 2019.
2019.
They opened up against the Falcons.
We opened up against the Falcons, and we just beat their asses.
Yeah. It was 28-12, but the game really was not that close.
It was never close. Never close. So the Vikings win that one. They go 10-6 that year.
2019, I think 10-6.
That's the year they beat the Saints
Yeah.
in the playoffs. And then
Yeah,
2020, oh my God, 2020.
Was a COVID year.
The
That was
Packers. We lost to the Packers.
That was the year the Packers kicked their ass in the first week.
That was, what was that, 42-31?
It was. I'm going to go back real quick. 43-34.
43-34. God.
What up, Eric?
And then 2021.
Oh, did I need you? Hold on. I can't hear you, Tony. Are you muted?
I don't remember 2021. Who we opened the season against.
Hold on. Oh, you're not muted. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, but
Hold on.
can you guys hear Tony or no? It might just be me.
Can you hear me now? Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember who we opened up with in 2021.
Yo, you can hear both of us, Eric? Okay. Yeah. I can't hear Tony.
You can't hear me at all?
There's really nothing on my. That's really weird.
Can you hear me now?
All right, let me see. Wow, this just really sucks. All right, so we were at 2020. So 2021, that was a loss. That was a loss to the Bengals.
Okay.
Yeah, 24-27. That was a loss to the Bengals.
Okay. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah. So and then after the Bengals, it was they played the Packers again. That was a 23-7 win.
Yeah, that was KLC's first game.
And then of course last year was the 20-17 loss. Yeah, no, I still can't hear you, Tony, but we're making it work.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, so that's pretty much the nutshell. Most of the home openers have been ho-hum, but there's been some good ones, blowouts, but then there's been some really bad ones, like the one against the Carolina, the one against the Packers in the COVID year. But the best one, like I said, the best one is probably the first Viking game ever in '61. The thumbnail for tonight.
Yeah, that would be the best one.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, go ahead. So that I think but people joined us late. So if you want to we talk about that game about the. Wait, no, that's not.
Yeah, that's the one we talked about the most.
Oh, sorry about that.
Mhm.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. Yeah, the little fix that StreamYard told me to do didn't work. Well, we have been on for almost 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We would go a little bit longer, but I can't hear Tony. Tony can hear me, but I can't hear him.
Yeah, Catch can't hear me, so
So, basically, we're just going to end it here because it's hard to do a show when a co-host can't hear another co-host. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. You guys are awesome as always.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
We
everyone.
appreciate everybody. Yeah, we appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for the donos tonight, George and No Stop. We're not doing a show this Friday because it's our off Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it's a holiday weekend.
Yep.
But we'll definitely be back next Wednesday. If you guys have any ideas, like we say all the time, if you guys have any ideas for shows that we want to talk about, if you guys have any topics, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'll check the chat. You hit me up on Twitter as well at Catch84. Tony has a Facebook page where you have an idea. You can send it to him. Hey, Tony, do you want to shout out your Facebook pages?
The Facebook pages I have are Minnesota Vikings, 24/7, 365. I also have Classic NFL and Pro Football, 24/7, 365. And I have NFL and Pro Football, 24/7, 365. If it's 24/7, 365, those are my pages. That's how I kind of mark my pages with the 24/7, 365. So if you can hit me up there, you can hit me up on Facebook, you can hit me up on Twitter. Purple Jersey Guy on Twitter. Yeah. Just send me a message. Feel free to send messages and show ideas, questions, trivia, anything.
And they're pretty interactive pages too. I go on there, and Tony does drop a lot of knowledge on those pages as well. So like I said, if you guys have any ideas to say, hey, I follow the Vintage on YouTube. Here's an idea for a show.
Mm-hmm.
Tony will send me a text. We'll talk about it because we've talked about so much that there's other things that we can talk about, but I'm sure there's things that you guys can think of that's more exciting than what we're thinking of.
Right.
So like I said, just YouTube, or if you're out watching Yogi's show, throw him an idea. Say, hey, talk to the guys about this on Vintage.
Yep.
Because we do talk. So that always works. But like I said, we want to thank you guys. We want to thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We really enjoy it, and we'll see you guys next week.
Vikings, let's win this game. Skol Vikings, honoring the name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run out the score. You'll hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Skol Vikings, let's go.